Hello everyone, it is Heather. Thank you for taking the time to join me for today's video, in which I am planning to debunk 8 not so typical cruise myths. The idea for this video came from a number of conversations that I've been having with my mom. My mom has never been on a cruise. She did go on one short overnight cruise to the Bahamas in 2004. But I actually almost think, I don't even think it was Bahamas Paradise Cruise Line. I actually think it might have been one of the ferries. There are ferries that go between the Bahamas and Florida. But anyway, she hasn't had a real cruise experience. She keeps saying that she wants to take a vacation and that she wants to go on a cruise, but I'm having a very difficult time helping her choose the best cruise to go on. I have talked on my channel many times in the past about how important it is to choose the best cruise line for your personality. It can really make a huge difference in your cruise experience if you choose a cruise line that is not well suited for you, okay? For example, I know I'm not gonna like Carnival, okay? That's just not my vibe. And, you know, my kids are a little concerned once in a while when I suggest things like going on Cunard, for example. They're a little concerned, is it going to be too stuffy? Is it going to be too formal? Things like that. So there's a lot of different cruise line environments, and it's really important that you choose one that you're going to feel comfortable in and that you're going to enjoy. The other big part of a cruise experience is your itinerary and where does the cruise go? And to some people, actually, this doesn't really matter. And even my mom has said she doesn't really care as long as it's warm. She had actually originally booked, 2 cruises now that she's canceled. The first one she booked on her own, and she made a whole bunch of mistakes. And I really wish she would have come to me, and she realizes that now, that she should have come to me for help. She was going to end up paying way too much. She was paying for things she didn't need. And she realized she made a couple of errors in her judgment. She booked it for January of 2024 on Holland America's Koningsdam, out of San Diego. But she realized in hindsight, after watching Ben and I's videos from the Disney Wonder that we took in October of 2022, and the videos from me and my kids, Megan and Ben, that we took on Royal Caribbean's Navigator of the Seas out of Los Angeles in January of 2023, that it was cold. And she really wants it to be warm on her cruise. So I said, Mom, it really makes more sense for you to choose a cruise like in the Caribbean, where it's much more likely to be warm. Then we had a Caribbean cruise booked for her and me and all 3 of my kids, just like the one we did with my dad in Alaska earlier this summer. And it was going to be over her birthday, because what she really wants to do is go for a cruise for her 75th birthday, milestone birthday. It's right before Christmas, it's 2 days before Christmas. It's December 23rd. So the timing of her birthday and the fact that Christmas is over a weekend is really messing us up. I'm also going to warn you right now, cruises at Christmas are insanely expensive. Okay, Christmas and New Year's, they're really, really, really pricey. But we had found one that was good, but it ended on Christmas Eve. And then when we realized what was happening with my kids with school this fall, the only one who really might be able to go would be, me and Andrew. Should be done and have flown back here from law school by then. Maybe. Okay. But it was going to conflict with Megan's finals. Ben would have had to miss the whole last week of school before Christmas break. They weren't happy about that at all, so we canceled that one too. So now we're kind of nowhere. Still not sure what we're going to do about a cruise with my mom. And from talking about this with her, I mean, I'm good at this. Picking cruises and helping people with cruises and travel and all that is my whole thing. And I just had a terrible time with her trying to figure out what she wants and what she likes and what she will like. And I can't figure it out. And so in our last conversation that we had, I actually started taking notes, because I'm like, wait a second. She's saying things that conflict with each other, and this doesn't make any sense. And I started to realize she was saying things that made it evident that, first of all, she doesn't have any cruise experience. That's very obvious. And she doesn't really have a solid idea of what a cruise is like. She has some ideas in her head, and I don't know where she's getting them from. I mean, one thing she brought up was the big midnight buffets, and ice sculptures and stuff like that. And I'm like, I've never seen that on a cruise. And I went on my first cruise in 2001. So I've been cruising for 22 years, and I don't think I've ever seen that on a cruise, okay? She's like, I think they got rid of it with the pandemic. And I'm like, I think they got rid of it with the 80s. I don't think that's a thing anymore. I just haven't seen that. Have you guys, are they doing that anywhere? I've never seen that. So she had some ideas in her head that I'm like, what? Where are you getting this from? That's not true. And so she really needs a lot of guidance. And this may be true for a lot of travelers. And through this conversation, I actually came up with what I realize are kind of myths about cruising, but they're not your typical myths that you usually hear. There's a lot of articles and videos out there about cruising myths, and they tend to be all the same stuff all the time, or very similar to this. A lot of them are, I'll be bored on the ship. Okay, that's a very common one. I won't like being stuck on the ship. I'm going to get seasick. Things like that. There's the very frequent common myths you hear about cruising all the time, okay? But through this discussion with my mom, I realized that some of the misconceptions, if you will, that she has in her mind, and that other travelers probably do too, but they never speak up about them, are different than the usual cruising myths that you might hear. So here's 8 not so typical or unspoken cruising myths that I'm going to debunk for you today. Number 1, my mom has it in her head that she has to have a balcony because she just wants to sit on her balcony and relax and look at the ocean. She seems to have it in her mind that the balcony is going to be the most relaxing place on the ship. Okay, that's not true. There might be times when the balcony is a nice, relaxing place on the ship, but Megan heard me saying that when I was, having this conversation with my mom over a chat. And she's like, the balcony's not like that. And she said, tell Mima, her grandmother, that the balcony is a tiny square of space. You're looking at everybody else's feet or heads, and you're listening to everyone else's conversations and a whole bunch of noise. And this is totally true. I'm not saying you don't want to have a balcony. It's nice to have a balcony. It is. I really wish we could have used our balcony on our Alaska cruise more. We had a serious problem with that. Go back and watch my Alaska vlogs to find out why. But anyway, I do like having a balcony. I don't feel that a balcony is always necessary. I do, for me, feel that having a window or a porthole to the outside is necessary. And that's just a personal thing for me because I get claustrophobic. And I also like to see what it's like outside and where we are. But here's the thing about a balcony. Number 1, when the ship is at full speed, like really traveling fast, which it has to do between ports, you really can't be out there, okay? Nobody's out there when the ship is moving fast. Why? Because you will be blown away, all right? There's so much wind, and it'll either be so cold or just so windy and loud from the wind, and your hair's all getting blown off and everything. You're really not going to be sitting out on your balcony when the ship is going at full speed. You're not. Okay, nobody is. And also, that's the time when there's all sorts of activities going on the ship and you're busy on the ship doing other things. Or it's at night when you're asleep is when the ship is moving really quickly. So you're not really going to be on your balcony when the ship is moving. The one exception to this is it is a nice time to be on the balcony when the ship is moving slowly. And what I mean by this is, for example, when the ship is just leaving a port or coming in to dock at a port, that is a good time when the ship is moving, but it's moving slowly, that it's enjoyable to be out on your balcony because you're not getting blown away, okay, because you're not going that fast. And there are interesting things to look at, okay, because you're coming into the port or you're going out of the port. Another time just on our Alaska cruise here that we enjoyed being out on the balcony was when we were going through the ice that was all in the water before we got to the glacier. And then again, as we were leaving Hubbard Glacier, it was really interesting to be out on the balcony. First of all, because the snow-capped mountains and everything were just beautiful. And it was really quiet and cold, and you could watch the ice in the water, and like the ship was actually, bumping up against the ice and stuff. But again, we were moving really slow. Once the ship picks up speed and starts going, you don't want to be out there anymore. So it's not like you're going to be sitting out on your balcony the whole time that the ship is cruising, so to speak. The other main time that you're going to want to be out on your balcony is when the ship is docked or anchored and not moving. Okay, because again, not getting blown away and stuff to look at. I mean, I like looking out on the open ocean too, but I don't know that I would ever really want to sit and stare at just the open ocean with nothing else in sight for hours on end. That's going to get boring, okay? As much as I love the ocean, I don't think that I would ever do that. But those two times, when the ship is moving slowly and when the ship is docked or anchored and not moving, that you want to be out on your balcony because you're not getting blown away, that's the same time that everybody else wants to be out on their balcony. And the other balconies are here, all around you, okay? And guess what everybody's doing? They're talking to each other, okay? They're talking. Maybe you want to read your book or whatever, or you just want to watch what's going on. Ben got so annoyed on our Alaska cruise because he was out there. I had already gone back inside. I think it was when we were leaving Sitka or Ketchikan. I don't know. And he said, Mom, I had to come back in because the people in the next balcony were so annoying him with their lack of nautical knowledge. They were saying like everything wrong about like the parts of the ship and the directions. And he's like, oh, I can't take it. He's like, if I stay out there, I'm going to have to correct them. It was just driving him crazy. So there's going to be conversations going on all around you. You're going to be talking. Sometimes on some cruise lines, this has never happened on a ship that I've been on, but on some cruise lines, people play music out there. They play their radio or their Bluetooth speakers or whatever. So it's not like it's going to be quiet and peaceful from the other passengers around you. You might also run into the problem of somebody, even though you're not allowed to do this on any North American departing ships, but smoke on their balcony and you get the smoke. That's very, very dangerous and against the rules, by the way, and you should report it. But somebody could be smoking out there and you're going to get the smoke from their balcony in your face. The other thing is, if you're near a port, there's a lot of stuff happening in the port. There's a lot of noise, welding, jackhammering, stuff getting loaded and unloaded, shouting, people moving around, trucks, buses. It's loud. The balcony when you're in port is not a peaceful, quiet place. So if you think that your balcony is going to be your most relaxing place on the cruise, that's not true. There might be small periods of time where the balcony is a nice, relaxing place, but it'd pretty much have to be when the ship is moving very slowly and nobody else is out on their balcony at the same time as you, or they just all happen to be silent. That's the only way that's going to be true. Second myth has to do with the atmosphere of the cruise, okay? And this is where my mom was really confusing me. Because she's mentioned relaxing many times. She's always mentioned relaxing. Well, honestly, on any vacation, you can find ways to relax. That's just how you choose to use your time. But she was using words like glitzy. She wanted it to be glitzy. And I'm like, all I'm thinking is Las Vegas. I'm like, what does she mean by this? She kept saying glitzy. And I'm like, what do you mean? And when I started to think of like, what's the Las Vegas of ships? I'm like, okay, so you want to go on MSC or Carnival? Because when I think of like glitzy, that's what I think of. And I'm like, is that what you mean? Because I said, that's going to be a lot of people who want to pay as little as possible and drink a lot. It is. Okay, I mean, I know that's kind of an overgeneralization, but you are going to have a lot of people on those types of cruise lines that's their main goal. And she's like, oh no, I don't want to be on a ship like that where everybody's drinking, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, then I don't think you want glitzy. Okay, so then I was trying to think about what she might be going for. And I said, do you mean elegant? And she's like, oh yeah, elegant. That's a better word. And I'm like, okay. So I think really what she was going for was like fancy or a nice upscale atmosphere. But I had to interpret what she was trying to get at. And to be honest, every cruise ship is kind of like that. I mean, every cruise ship is it's like a really, really nice hotel, really. I mean, they all are. There's very few cruise ships out there. I'm looking at you, Margaritaville at Sea, that are not going to be that way. I don't think she's going to have any kind of disappointment or, unless she went on a very cheap, very old, very basic ship. she's going to find the fancy and the elegant and the nice atmosphere that she's looking for. Okay, but then along with this, she said that she didn't think that our Holland America cruise that we went on to Alaska, she thought it was too mild. And I'm like, mild? I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I don't think there's enough to do. Okay, well, I got to tell you, I did say in my 3 best and 3 worst things about our Holland America cruise on Eurodam that we did feel that they could have a greater variety of entertainment and activities. However, we always had plenty to do. We always had lots of choice of things to do. We were never bored. Part of that is because it was Alaska, and that's a port intensive itinerary, and there was all these educational things to go to and stuff like that. But she was saying that she didn't want it to be mild, but I'm like, Mom, you're 75 years old. I guess does she want to be like doing discoing? And I don't know what she means. And so that was throwing me off. Knowing what you are, I guess I don't know what the myth is here. I'm sorry, but I don't know what the myth is here. The myth, I guess, is that ships are going to be different than what you think. That it's going to, I don't know. Help me here, guys. What do you think about this? What myth am I looking for? I guess it's just that the environment of the ship is going to be a certain way, and that's just how it is. And that's not true either, because you can have different parts of the same ship even will be a very different environment. You can have different ships within the same cruise line will be very different from each other and have a different atmosphere and a different personality. So I guess the second myth I would be is that every cruise ship is the same, or all cruise ships are like this, or something like that. So that would probably be the second one. And it's important to be able to verbalize exactly what you're looking for in a ship, because you're not going to be able to pick one accurately unless you know what you want. Third myth on any given ship, all the people are going to be this. I think a lot of people run into this. Everybody on Holland America is going to be old. All Disney is kids. It's just going to be all kids. Well, I can tell you from experience, this is not true at all on any cruise I've been on. And I've talked about this in the past too. Our Disney cruise that we took in October 2022, I think Ben was the only teenager on there. There were babies and toddlers and preschoolers who didn't have to be in school. And then there was Ben, the one teenager, and there were no other kids. Everybody else was an adult. It was all adults because kids were in school. For 3/4 of the year, when kids are in school, almost every cruise is going to be basically just adults. Unless parents are taking their kids out of school to go on a cruise, most of the time it's going to be all adults. And it's going to be a wide range of adults. You should never assume that it's just old people, because here's the truth. This is the truth about every single cruise, okay, within reason. There are babies on every single cruise line and every single cruise. There's going to be some babies, okay? There were babies on our Holland America cruise to Alaska. And there are going to be old people, senior citizens, on every single cruise. There were lots of senior citizens on every Disney cruise we've ever been on. By themselves. Elderly couples by themselves holding hands enjoying their Disney cruise, okay? You're going to have elderly people and you're going to have little babies and everything in between on every single cruise you go on, okay? That's just a fact. Unless it's literally an adults-only cruise, that Saga Cruises is the only one I can think of. You have to be 50 and up, and you have to be a citizen of the UK, really. So unless you're a British senior citizen going on Saga, that's about the only time you're not going to have a wide variety of ages on a cruise. And then the other thing my mom said, because she said she really wanted to meet people of different ages and from different places. People on cruises are from all over the world. Every cruise you go on, people are from all over the place. And I'm not just talking about the passengers, I'm talking about the crew. Talk to the crew. The crew of every cruise ship out there is international. They're from countries all over the place. And the officers are going to be from totally different countries than the crew that's serving you other places is going to be. Most officers are usually European, sometimes American. Most of the crew that serves you in the dining room and the waitstaff and stuff like that are going to be usually a lot of Southeast Asians. And everything in between. You're going to find crew and staff on ships from countries all over the world. And just remember, just because English isn't their first language, that doesn't mean that you're smarter than them, okay? That means they know more than one language, so they probably know more languages than you. The passengers are always going to be from all over. I mean, every time we go on a cruise and like they play a game and they ask where everybody's from, they're like from 6 different states or whatever. They're from a different country, you know, all sorts of stuff. So every cruise I've ever been on, there are many people from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and everybody is all sorts of different ages. So you're going to find that on every cruise. Myth number 4, the ship is not going to be clean. My mom mentioned in our conversation like 6 times, as long as it's clean. It needs to be clean. Okay, she seemed to be really worried about this. And I can't figure out why. Like, I don't know what her experience is that she thinks ships aren't going to be clean. And so I finally just told her flat outright what I'm going to tell you. Every cruise ship I've been on is cleaner than the hospital. Okay, that's down the road. Seriously, ships are cleaner than my doctor's office. They're so clean. Every ship I've been on is spotless. I mean, once in a while you will see some issues with cleanliness, you know, here and there. Never my room. The stateroom attendants do such a wonderful job. The one place you might see it is where like there's been a lot of people, you know, the buffet, they may not be able to like clean the floor as quickly in between guests or something like that. But I mean, it's never dirty. I don't know what she means. I don't know why people would ever think cruise ships are extremely clean. They're very, very clean. It's going to be one of the cleanest environments you're ever in, honestly, is a cruise ship. So that myth is totally untrue that cruise ships aren't clean. They're very clean. And the whole thing about like, I mean, COVID obviously was an issue everywhere because COVID is airborne and we breathe it and stuff like that. And anytime you're in close proximity to people, you're going to be at risk of COVID, and other respiratory illnesses, you know, flu even or whatever. But the whole thing with norovirus and stomach bugs and all that, oh, cruise ships are a petri dish. That is such baloney. You're much more likely to get norovirus at school or in a daycare or in a hospital than you are to get it on a cruise ship, okay? The rates of norovirus and, you know, like gastrointestinal illness and stuff like that on cruise ships are very, very, very small compared to what they are every place else that you go. So it just gets highlighted a lot in the news because it's something they can put in the news. But it's really, and when I see the numbers, they'll be like, 100 people on this cruise ship had gastrointestinal illness. 100 people on that cruise ship would have had gastrointestinal illness even if you hadn't put this in the news. That's just how many out of 5,000 people in a normal day happen to have gastrointestinal illness. You know, so I mean, when I see the numbers, I'm like, that's such a small percentage. That's not even worth mentioning. That's just that's normal, you know? So yeah, cruise ships are very clean. You're very safe from illness and disease and germs on a cruise ship, especially if you do your part and wash your hands. Please wash your hands. Myth number 5. I won't know what the activities are and what's going on, and I won't have anything to do. That whole kind of thing, okay? And the way she was getting at this was she kept talking about, I want a cruise that's well organized. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, I want to make sure like with the staff and the scheduling and the communication. Now, okay, there can be a communication blip in any travel experience. You know, maybe they didn't communicate something well to the guests or something, or they were supposed to send out a push notification to everybody or an email or something and it got missed or whatever, okay? A lot of that, I'm going to go back to my stuff I talked about in this video about 8 essential travel tips for seniors. A lot of that, though, is on the guest, honestly. If you're not paying attention to the information that the cruise line is sending you or the daily planner or the app or whatever it is, the way that they're communicating information to you about the activities and the things that you need to know about your cruise, that's on you. You need to pay attention to all that stuff. And I talked about that in that video. I have occasionally missed something, but again, it's not that the information wasn't available to me. It's just that somehow I didn't see it. I didn't look carefully enough at the planner or the schedule or whatever. But I mean, Cruise ships have plenty of information. There's schedules in multiple places. They're making announcements all the time. I mean, you're going to hear announcements from multiple people. You're going to hear announcements every day at noon from the captain. You're going to hear announcements from the cruise director multiple times a day. You know, they're going to highlight things for you. There's going to be information on your stateroom TV that you can access at any time. There's going to be information on the app that you can access at any time. There's going to be, on some ships, there's going to still be paper schedules and paper information. So there's plenty of ways for you to get the information that you need and to find out what's going on. Nothing else, just a quick walk around the ship and seeing where are people gathered, and then ask somebody, what's happening here? You know, I've done that before. Why is there a big line here? Oh, we're waiting for this. And then you're like, oh, and then you can do that too, you know? I mean, and here's the thing. Other than like a few examples of where something might be like adults only or something, there's nothing you can't do. You can do anything you want on the cruise ship. If something's happening on the cruise ship, I mean, unless it's some super exclusive invite only thing, that you can go to any activity or game or, you know, information session or whatever, to any of them. Everybody's welcome. Don't be concerned that the ship is not well organized and that you're not going to be able to figure out what's going on. Then I kind of asked my mom in our conversation, these last 3 are related to fears that she had. I said, what are you most afraid of about going on a cruise? So these last 3 are related to that. So number 6 is, I'm sure this is very common, and I even worry about this. She's worried about making a packing mistake or forgetting something. This is a very common fear among travelers, cruisers included. It's something I worry about on every trip I go on. Every time I leave the house to go on a trip, I said, we're driving to the airport, I'm always thinking, I think I forgot something. And usually I did forget something. This last trip to Alaska, I did not. I'm pretty proud of myself. I did not forget anything. But there's lots of ways that you can prevent this from happening. One way is to make a packing list or find a packing list online and use that and literally check the things off that you need to take with you and make sure you have everything. Another way is like making sure you give yourself plenty of time to pack so you're not packing like in a hurry at the last minute or something like that. But I think that people worry about this more than they really need to, because I forget stuff all the time. And almost everything, you can probably buy it somewhere, even on the cruise ship. Like on our Alaska cruise, I ran out of ibuprofen, which I needed because I still have pain in my ankle when I overdo it with my ankle. And I didn't have any more ibuprofen, and my dad ran out too. They didn't have any ibuprofen in the shop on the ship. Now, they have a lot of essentials in the shop on the ship. They're going to be expensive, but there is a lot of stuff that commonly forgotten items are going to be for sale in the shop on the ship. Or in your hotel sundry shop, you know, in the lobby at your hotel or wherever. But all we did was, I think we were in Sitka. My dad knew I needed ibuprofen. When he and Andrew were wandering around Sitka that morning, they went to a drugstore and he bought me some. So, problem solved, you know. I mean, don't worry too much about forgetting something, because almost anything you might forget, you're going to be able to buy somewhere, okay? Or you can make do without it. The key things that you want to make sure you always have are good, comfortable walking shoes, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to find a shoe store and take the time when you're traveling to find good shoes. Okay, that you need them to be worn in and things like that. So make sure you've got your good shoes. But you should already be wearing those and have them on your feet when you're going on the airplane. So that really shouldn't be an issue. Your passport. Okay, don't forget your passport. This is the most important thing. If you don't have your passport, you're not getting on the ship. So, I mean, there's some exceptions where you might be using a birth certificate, but I do not recommend that. Okay, so if you're going on an international trip, including a cruise, make sure you have your passport. And thirdly, money, or a way to pay for something, your credit card, your debit card, cash, whatever, or at least a card so you can go to the ATM and get money, something. As long as you have a way to pay for things and a way to buy something that you forgot that you needed, you're fine. Those 3 things, seriously, if that's all you have, a means to pay for things, your passport, and comfortable shoes, you're set. You really don't need anything else. You can make do without everything else or get it replaced somehow. I mean, people lose their luggage all the time and they still go on a cruise and they don't have any of their stuff. They go to the shop and they buy clothes and they manage, you know, and they get toiletries and stuff. And the cruise line might even help you out and just give you stuff. So, I mean, don't worry about that too much. I forget stuff all the time and it's fine. Number 7, she was concerned about finding her way around. I was actually really glad she brought this one up because I think this is probably a fear that a lot of people have and a myth that a lot of people have, that I'm not going to be able to find my way around the ship. And it might, actually prevent them from taking a cruise. But this is something that people wouldn't necessarily want to admit that they're worried about because, like, oh, come on, I'm an intelligent person. I should be able to find my way around the ship, right? Okay. Let me put your mind at ease with this one. First of all, you have to remember you're on a ship, okay? The ship is a defined area. If you go too far in one direction, you would be in the ocean, okay? Let's also set aside the fear of falling overboard. It is virtually impossible to fall off a cruise ship unless you are doing something really stupid. Everybody has made lots of videos about this. People who fall off cruise ships 99.99% of the time were either doing something very ill-advised and not wise, climbing up on the balcony, climbing up on the furniture, trying to climb from one balcony to the other, taking a dare, okay, or something ridiculous like that. They were doing something you shouldn't be doing, or they were very, very drunk. But that kind of goes back to, or unfortunately, it was a suicide. Okay, so they intentionally jumped overboard. This is the case in almost every story you hear about somebody going overboard on a ship. If you are a normal, reasonably sober person who's just behaving normally, you're not going to fall off the cruise ship, okay? That's not really a thing. The cruise ship itself is a defined space. I mean, you can't go beyond the limits of the ship. Also, much of the ship is crew area, and crew area is going to be very clearly marked. Crew area, do not enter. No passengers. Crew area, restricted access. There's going to be signs, very clear signs, that this is an area you're not allowed as a passenger to go in. Signage is also going to be very clear just every place else. There's going to be signs all over the place. There's going to be signs that point you this is this way. It's on the floor even. It's built into the carpet. Every ship will have some secret little thing in the carpet that's pointing you in a certain direction. On our last ship, it was literally in the carpet, forward and aft, with arrows pointing. There's lots of signage everywhere all over the ship that tells you what this is, where you are, which direction are you walking, things like that. The other thing is, every cruise ship has very good deck plans. A deck plan is a map of the ship. If you can't find it anyplace else, I mean, Royal Caribbean's really good. They put it in several places. They put these like 3D deck by deck little ships made out of crystal kind of things everywhere. I think Celebrity does too, but if you don't have extra ones like that, sometimes they'll be digital and you can actually touch it. On Royal Caribbean, they have that where, it knows where you are. And you say, I want to get to this place, and you touch that place, and then it literally gives you directions how to get there. But on every cruise ship by the elevators, there's going to be a map or deck plans right there by the elevators that you can look at, and you can figure out where you need to go. Anybody that's working on the ship can help you. Most of the passengers can probably help you. Just stop somebody and say, excuse me, do you know where the whatever is? And, oh, sure, go down these stairs and it's that way. Don't be afraid to stop an officer if they're walking by. You can also access the deck plans on the app usually. So if you're carrying your phone with you, there'll be deck plans on the app on your phone. So there's lots of ways that you can find where stuff is on a ship. The longer you're on a ship, the more comfortable you're going to get. I mean, really, it's just like a hotel. It's like a big hotel or like a little city. And it has very predictable passageways. Most ships are very similar in design and how the passageways, which are hallways on a ship, run and things like that. And predictably, the same venues will generally be in the same places on every cruise ship. Restaurants are almost always in the stern, the back of the ship. And that's because that's where the kitchen is, okay? The theater, the main theater, is almost always in the bow, okay? Because they need a large space and that's where it fits. And they don't want to break up the ship with the theater because the theater's got to span the entire width of the ship. So that's where they put it. They put it all the way in the front. So, I mean, things like that, you can pretty much trust that they're always going to be like that. You can trust that the health center is always going to be at the bottom. The health center, and I show you this in my cruise vlogs, the health center is going to be on deck 1 usually, or maybe one deck below that. It'll be like a deck A or something. The buffet and the pools are always going to be at the top. Okay? Things like that. There's some things that are predictable about cruise ships that just because of the way a cruise ship is designed and the way a ship has to work with weight and balance in the water and things like that, the same things are always going to be in the same places. And there's plenty of ways that you can find your way around a cruise ship. You shouldn't let that worry you. Some cruise ships are a little more confusing than others, but you still shouldn't have any problem finding your way around or getting where you need to go. Last myth, and this again was a fear of my mom. She was worried about being isolated in her cabin. And this goes back a little bit to some stuff I talked about with my dad going to Alaska too. Some of that I think is probably related to the things she said about like not knowing what's going on, where I talked about communication and also not being able to find your way around the ship. The one thing I'll say is unless you just get room service for your whole cruise, you're going to have to leave the cabin to eat. So if you want to eat, you're going to need to get out of your cabin and you're going to need to go find a place to eat. And you know, you probably have multiple choices of places you can go eat, but no matter what, you're going to need to go out of your cabin to eat. That's pretty, expected. I do want to point out too that you're going to need to get out of your cabin so that your room attendant or your room steward can make up your room and clean your room for you. I don't think any cruise line is going to like it too much if the passengers never leave their cabin because they need to get in there to, make the bed and empty the garbage and bring you new towels and all that stuff. I'm sure it does happen where people kind of hole up in their room, but you're going to be missing out on so much if that's all you do, if you never leave your room. What she might be speaking more to here is, and this is probably true for a lot of people who solo cruise, is the concern about doing things on your own. And actually, even my son Andrew mentioned this in the interview that I did with him about how he liked Holland America, that there would have been more things that he would have gone to if he wasn't by himself. Now, obviously, he wasn't by himself on the cruise. He was with the rest of us. But there were some things he wanted to go to that we didn't want to go to. You know what I mean? So different activities that we weren't interested in. And he didn't go to them because, he would have liked to have a friend his own age or something. And he noticed that on that particular cruise, there wasn't really the opportunity to meet other solo people. There usually is going to be some kind of solo events for solo cruisers on every cruise. So watch for those in the schedule if you're concerned about this. Even if you're not traveling solo, but you're in a situation like that was, maybe go to the solo group cruise gatherings anyway, because it would give you an opportunity to meet other people like you who are traveling on their own and might like to meet someone. So there's that too. Another good thing you can do if you truly are traveling on your own is to request that the cruise line seat you in the main dining room with other solo travelers. And I've seen this. And when I was a single mom traveling on my own with Andrew when he was little on our first cruise in 2001 on Disney, they seated us with other families that also had one child that was the same age as Andrew. And so the kids got to get to know each other and have fun. And then the adults, we could all talk to each other. So the cruise line will do that. They'll seat like people together. So then you can get to know the other people at your table. And maybe they're interested in going to an activity that you're interested in going to. There shouldn't be any reason you need to fear being isolated in your cabin because there is always plenty to do on a cruise ship. And there are ways, strike up a conversation. Everybody on cruise ships is usually very friendly and very willing to talk to you and, talk about things. Avoid politics and religion like you should in any social setting, and you'll be fine. Talk about, hey, what did you do yesterday when we were in this port? Or what's your favorite part of the ship so far? Oh, hey, did you see the da-da-da show? What'd you think of it? There's lots of ways that you can strike up a conversation with someone, sitting next to you in the theater or sitting near you in a lounge or at dinner or whatever. And so you shouldn't feel like you're isolated because there's plenty of ways that you can meet people or at least have conversations with people that'll only enhance your cruise. I mean, we always talk to, I'm never traveling alone, but we still always talk to other people on all of our cruises. And that's an enjoyable part of the experience because you get to meet people from other places like we talked about earlier. Okay, so there you go. That was 8 not your typical cruise myths that you might be wondering about, things about a cruise. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that this gave you some valuable information that maybe puts your mind at ease, that makes you feel a little less nervous or wary about going on a cruise, and that you're able to use this information to help you make a better decision about what cruise or what cruise ship or line you want to go on and what your cruise experience will be like. If you did find this video helpful, interesting in any way, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed to my channel and you enjoy travel content like this, I would encourage you to please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.